Today, I want to talk about my journey into oil painting and my creative process up until this point. I first started oil painting in 2022 after being laid off and having to move back to my parents' home. I hadn't really painted since I left high school and went to college, so it had been about like 5 years since I've really painted or been really creative with anything. And so before I got laid off, I was already starting to miss painting and like just wanting to get back into it, but just like had no time because I was working so much. And, I didn't really have anything outside of work other than my friends. So I started getting more into painting after being laid off in 2022. If you scroll back on my like very first videos I made on this account, you'll see that I started with like watercolor and then gouache. Didn't really love it. And then I found oil painting. And honestly, I wanted to do oil painting in the beginning, but it's just like so daunting to learn how to oil paint because it's like a whole process and it's kind of intense. And so when you teach yourself, it's just a lot. But thankfully, I found this account called Draw Mix Paint. His name's Mark, and he has this entire free tutorial on how to get started with oil painting. And he kind of gives you like a step by step process, everything you need to know if you're just starting out. So I did that. It was very, very helpful. I literally like spent all day researching, watching his videos, and just learning everything I could so that I could paint. And then I just realized that I really, really like painting. So I wanted to kind of push myself a little bit further and see if I could make a collection out of it and just to see if this was more than a hobby and more of like a passion of mine. So the first collection that I created was definitely an experiment for me because I had never created a collection. I didn't really understand what a collection was. I didn't really like follow a lot of artists online. So I was kind of just experimenting with myself and just seeing what I wanted to create. And I was really inspired by women's health at the time because I had just gotten off of birth control, which was making me crazy. And I didn't realize that birth control was making me crazy and making my hormones go like fluctuate so much and making me spiral and have crazy moments. So I was at the time that I created my first collection, I was getting off birth control and I was getting really into women's health and like teaching myself about my body and about my cycle, things that I had never learned in school. And so I just felt really inspired and like passionate about that subject. And I was like, this is what I want my first collection to be about. So I created it with that in mind, and really kind of channeled like my feelings through the collection. But also, I used it as a learning experience too to see if I really enjoyed, number one, making collections, and if this was something that I wanted to do or if it was just too stressful and not fun. I didn't want to do it. But it turned out to be very, very fun. So this is why we're now on our third collection. But yeah, I started out with the first collection just really trying to gauge if this was something that I wanted to do. Number one, if I enjoyed every aspect of the work because it was a lot of work that I put into it. And it was like all my free time was going into it. And if I was okay with that. And then also, I wanted to kind of push myself and do more portraits and just see if I could grow my skill in that area of painting. Another aspect that I wanted to push myself with my first collection was trying to come up with my own process of how I wanted my collections to go in the future and just kind of like refining how I create my paintings. Because usually, whenever you create an oil painting, you start with an idea, of course, in your head of what you want to paint. Or at least this is how I do it. This is not how every artist does it, but this is just my process. But I have an idea of what I want to paint in my head. I create that image or create something that is close to the image in my head in Canva using pictures from the internet. So like I will just like crop a bunch of pictures together to create that vision that I have in my brain. And then I will use that image that I've created in Canva as my reference photo. And then after you find your reference photo, you sketch it onto the canvas. That's like step 3. Step 4 is mixing the paints, like the correct colors. Um, Pulling the correct colors from the reference image and then mixing the colors. And then finally, when you have all of that done, you can paint and you can create your artwork. So that was a process that I was already using, but I wanted to see if I could replicate that for the collection for all 3 paintings, and then also see if I could refine it in different areas. So after the first collection, I determined that I wanted to do this. I wanted to create more, and I wanted to continue to get better at my art and my painting, and I wanted to continue to improve my creative process. So with my second collection, the way that I wanted to improve was by adding a storyline. I was kind of looking for something that was more fun, just because the first collection I created was a little bit more intense with my feelings around everything. And it was really just a way for me to like get my emotions out. But for the second collection, I really just wanted to have fun with it and just like kind of find the more fun aspect in my creative process. I don't know, I just like wanted to push myself and just see what I could create. And so that's how I came up with my second collection, which was like a Bridgerton meets modern technology. So yeah, so my first collection, we learned how to refine our creative process. Second collection, we got better at painting and we learned how to incorporate a storyline into the collection. And then for my third collection, which is my most recent collection, I really, really wanted to experiment with adding a video element on top of everything else. Are you comfortable? My third collection is about a woman who gets revenge on her exes. It's like this fun Maneater persona, and it's kind of like a thriller a little bit. After I created this like video element for my collection, I realized that if you were already following me, then you would have seen the videos and you would have seen the collection how it was meant to be experienced, and that is by seeing the videos before you see the final painting. Because when I launched the collection, I launched the video first. There's 3 videos, 3 pieces. All my collections have 3 paintings. It's just I like threes, and that's what I do is do multiples of 3s for some reason. The collection was meant to be experienced by using the first video clip, then you would see the painting, second video clip, second painting, third video clip, third painting, because each video matches the painting. I realized once I put the collection out that if you weren't already following me and experienced it at that moment in time, you wouldn't really experience it again if you had just followed me today or tomorrow. You would kind of just see the paintings and you'd be like, oh, that's a painting, but I don't know any of the storyline that goes with it, right? So I decided to create a web page that takes you through the storyline and the campaign how it was meant to be experienced. Yeah, I thought that was a really good idea, and I don't even know if anyone's actually looked at it. But I think it's a really good idea, and I as an artist, I just really you spend so much time on the back end creating things and creating the storyline and making it make sense in your brain and putting all this work and effort into it. And I just didn't want all that to be lost whenever you see the painting, you know what I mean? So that's why I created the webpage that takes you through that journey and makes it easy for you to experience it at any moment in time. So yeah, I know I've been rambling a ton, but I just wanted to like show you guys. I just wanted to explain what my creative process is up until this point. I feel like my friends always ask me questions about my art and my creative process, and I love talking about it. Obviously, it's my passion. So I thought it would be interesting to include it on this channel. This may just be like a bunch of me rambling. I'm trying to get better at composing my thoughts. Composing, is that the right word? Putting my thoughts together so that it makes sense. It makes sense in my brain. I don't know if it's translating, but anyway, that brings us to today and the collections up until this point and what my creative process up until this point. And in the next video, I will include you guys on what my creative process is going to look like in the future, because I am updating it and improving things and adding new things, because of course every new collection that I have to add something on there. I have to learn in some way. I have to challenge myself in some way. Yeah, so now that brings us up until this point and into the next collection, which I will not be saying anything about the next collection right now because it's a secret, but I am working on it. And in the next video, I will give you a little bit of insight on my creative process for this new collection. And I plan on kind of documenting more of what I am doing with this collection. I want to document the process up until the point because I'm adding some new things to it. I'm challenging myself in new ways, and I just want to share how I'm doing that. Thank you guys for watching, whoever's watching. Stay tuned. Bye.